welcome all of our valued listeners to the first episode, the pilot or the inaugural episode of C&N. My name is Alex, and I'm sitting here with Peter. Say hi, Peter.
Hey, Peter.
Peter's having a great time. We wanted to start by saying a little bit about what CNN is and what the name even means, since my name is Alex and his name is Peter, and neither of those names start with C or N. So that works out great. C&N actually stands for Chipotle and Netflix. And there was a quote that I was turned on to, more of a saying actually that I was turned on to. It's from ancient Rome. And the saying is bread and circuses. And there's a quote that Peter's going to read for us right now.
Already long ago, from when we sold our vote to no man, the people have abdicated our duties. For the people who once upon a time handed out military command, high civil office, legions, everything, now restrains itself and anxiously hopes for just two things, bread and circuses.
So what that quote says to me is there was a time in this revolutionary, wonderful civilization called Rome where people were involved and they pushed themselves and they drove themselves to learn and expand themselves and be proud and be involved. But this great empire had a bit of a side effect. The side effect was the abundance of food and the abundance of interesting and new entertainment. And what happened was that these people in the society, these citizens, became more interested in the result of a learned, healthy society and less involved in creating and maintaining it.
Right. I'd agree with that. And so the pinnacle of that would be Chipotle and Netflix, right?
So you look at America like ancient Rome,
zoom
and
forward.
Yeah, and we've built this democracy with all these creature comforts, and it's a wonderful place. But the ultimate bread and circuses is Chipotle and Netflix. Because what is bread and circuses but sustenance and entertainment? And there's nothing special about Chipotle, nothing special about Netflix, but it's just two things that.
Right. Yeah, we didn't pick them. For any special reason.
Yeah, we're not ragging on Chipotle, which actually, as far as I know, is a very ethical business.
Right, yeah, hopefully they don't sue us.
But, yeah, hopefully. But Netflix is, it's all the entertainment you want at any moment, whatever show you want to watch. You can hop between shows. It's on every device you have. It's the ultimate thing to sit down. And people talk about binge watching shows. This is a new saying. This is a saying that actually came about.
Because you probably couldn't, unless you recorded. Back in the day,
right?
Yeah,
when we were kids.
Recorded them, taped them. There's no way you could watch that many shows in a row.
And it wasn't until box sets came out and then the play all button, which was just the most insidious invention. I mean, we've all woken up to menu screens of things. There's actually a website. It's about it's called like Dude, You Fell Asleep Watching, and you choose a movie.
Right.
And then so your character wakes up and you're in a dark living room and there's like a bong on the table and there's like a little lighter and there's like a couple beers and like you just choose the movie's menu screen you want to have playing on the TV. Right. Have you seen this before? I'll show you. It's pretty funny. Yeah. But yeah, so you just choose like Rocky V and then it's just the Rocky V DVD menu screen playing over and over and over again. I've been there with Futurama watching that. But there's nothing specific about these businesses that we're ragging on. We're just saying that we live in a time now when I feel that people don't necessarily involve their full faculties, involve their full brain power in understanding and looking at this world. They kind of just accept what they're given, like animals in a zoo, and just move forward with their lives. And that's fine. That's a fine thing. But there are those who I feel do like to think about their world, and they do like to evaluate their situation and think about life, and this would be a fun outlet for them, a place where they can turn.
Yeah, if you think that way, you're listening to the show right now.
You're in the right. Yeah, you're in the right place.
If you're in Class A, right, the prior example Alex gave, you're probably not going to bother to download this stuff.
Sure.
So I guess going off of that, Alex, how I see this breaking down is, you're a lot more focused on like the macro, right? Our previous, our alternate name was actually going to be Macro Micro, something like that, Mac and Mike. And Alex is going to take it out, I'm assuming, to the big picture, right? And that's not to say that my segment of the show is going to be small picture, but it's far smaller than
Terrestrial.
Yeah,
it?
it's
Stuff that happens
it's
here, right? Yeah.
terrestrial, and Alex is interterrestrial or whatever. What is that? Extraterrestrial. I got interstellar and
That's all right.
extraterrestrial mixed up. Oh man, extrastellar.
Yeah. So my piece is going to be about the thing I'm passionate about, and the thing I'm passionate about is just trying to expose the world to these ideas. Not the world, but our 20 listeners to the ideas that
Right. Our 20 listeners.
Yeah, our 20 listeners to the fact that we're something kind of special. We're existing right now in this time period, and that's really cool that I can come to you through electronic devices while you're riding a bus, right? And I can talk to you, and I don't know you, and I may never see you, but I'm still talking to you. That's really great. We're a great and beautiful and terrible species, and I want to talk about why that is and how we got to where we are, what we're made of, what created us. And Peter's going to focus more on events here on this planet.
It's contemporary, yeah.
Yep.
It's going to be, what are we doing now?
What are we doing now? What is our society doing?
Where are they now category.
Exactly. Where did humans come from and where are they now? He's the last part of the VHS tale, which is really sad.
Well, and actually, going back to what you're saying before, Alex, with
where are the rest of the blowfish?
Us talking to them, they can actually talk to us. If you give them the email address.
Certainly, yeah. Comment sections are great. Emails, we still use the email. It's cndnpodcast@gmail.com. Once again, that's CANDN podcast@gmail.com.
Yeah, hopefully, because the logo has the ampersand in it.
Exactly. So then you can't have that in
you
email
can't
address.
have that
Once
in
again,
email address. Apparently.
CAND.
Because it's part of a URL or something.
podcast@gmail.com. And we're going to read every single one of them. At first, both of them. And then
right. Yeah. Hopefully people don't think that it just goes into a bin.
Yeah. We don't have any assistants helping us.
We don't have any assistants. So we read them all. And, if it's, and everything's relevant. I think that's the big thing. We spent, I guess last episode talking about homelessness, which has a lot of varying factors. And actually, I'm going to take this opportunity to dive right in here, Alex, because
before we start doing any diving, I wanted to clarify one thing quick. If you hear a topic brought up in an episode, still feel free to email about that. We can always go back. We can always if you have a problem with what we said, you want to insert some kind of fact, we would love to slide that in. So just because we moved on past goat herding or moved on past slave labor in China doesn't mean you can't email about it. We will do our best to address it.
Absolutely. And so that was, I guess, I was gonna just bring up a quick example about how a question becomes relevant. so here's for the listeners now. So say, for example, there was a girl who was thinking about. She was talking to me. She was thinking, and I told her, email it into Alex, see if he does whatever. That didn't happen, but I'm gonna bring it up right now because she told me. So her
told someone to email me,
right?
And
yeah,
it never happened.
Right, okay. And it never happened. But she might have been shy or whatever. I don't really know. Because the question, I'm going to bring up the question anyway.
Yeah.
So the question was, if I don't know the exact way of wording it, but it was sort of like if you were going to modify chromosomes to make it possible for female. Reproduction, and then not need men, right?
Okay. Yeah.
So the way that I was going to address this, inherently, it's a scientific question, right? But the two of us, I'm going to go out on a limb and speak for you and say that neither of us are qualified to speak as to whether or not this is actually possible scientifically, right? We don't, unless you do.
I feel like you and I are both qualified. Because
so?
What you can do is you can look at our species' use of technology so far and say,
right.
Is this outside of what is capable of us doing? I'm sorry, I could phrase that better. Is this outside of the possibility, judging by our track record? Like some things we can't do, like go fast and light, for example. We can't do that. It probably is never going to happen.
It's probably never going
to happen. But modifying genes slightly to not need males, I feel like that's well within what we're going to be able to do in the next 30 years.
Okay.
We mapped the genome.
Right.
Well done, humans. I think we'll be done with men. Of course, it'll never happen. But anyway, you continue.
But so before you fuck my shit up, this is what I was gonna say was that the average bear, what was the average bear take on a question like that wouldn't necessarily have anything to do with the scientific part of it.
Okay.
Right. What I was saying was the two of us were going to discuss more of the cultural implications of what would men do if they were no longer needed in society, right?
Okay.
So I think that's more along the lines of the discussion that we would have if you gave that question to the two of us.
Yep.
So the reason I mention this is if you email anything in, we will do our best to not answer your question, and we're going to take it and run with it, and probably
we will dance around with it,
and we will probably, but it's going to go somewhere, right? And if we didn't answer your question, I apologize. You can email it email us back with some, I guess, supplementary information to say, look, guys, what about this or what about this? And Alex was talking about doing some streaming or something in the future, which will solve all our problems, and we won't have to have this conversation.
You can yell at us directly.
Right, you can yell at us directly. You can
the
literally
learned
fact check on the fly.
And say bullshit on that. Matter of fact, everything
is going to be kind of a problem for us now.
There's a joke on SNL when they do Fox and Friends.
Right.
They do the Fox and Friends, and then when they go to a commercial break, they say, and here's our corrections, and they'll run like a super fast list of white text of all the things they said that was wrong in the episode so far. And if you freeze them, there's some funny stuff. There's some funny stuff in there, but
that's funny.
Yeah.
Well, that's something we could definitely do. In fact, in the little edit thing, like in the podcast description, we get the hyphen corrections. Right. Episode
we could have a whole second show. I was thinking that's how we work, though. I was thinking about your hypothetical question about men and being removed from the species, and I was thinking that I think our top male scientists would work on making uglier centipedes and spiders so that men still had a place in the world of killing bugs for women.
Funny.
Because we're pretty worthless.
Well, yeah, you're right. You're right. There are probably a lot of problems that are considered male problems. Exclusively male problems.
We learn a lot about how we think from our mothers.
Right.
We learn a lot about how we think and deal with the world from our mothers. So you can call it a male problem, but we do learn social behaviors from women.
Right.
And it's a special problem. It's a species problem. There's the reason that we are this way. God damn it. We're off. We're off and running on this topic that didn't even really come
It's
up.
okay, man. It's okay. We'll do it.
No, women selected traits in men. And the big buzz right now is how human males have the largest penises of any great African ape. Compared to the chimpanzee or the bonobo or the gorilla, silverback gorilla. Our penises are really hilariously large.
So in comparison to other similar animal species.
Body proportion, our penises are way too big. Because women chose us that way. Women bred large penises into us.
Right.
And so you look at,
And peni is actually, I think,
is that right?
The plural term.
Cool. But you look at wars, and you look at genocides, and you look at everything good and bad about our society. Those are because of traits that women bred into us. Women have such control over the selection of mates. Women are so much more picky. And so you think of the bad guy in any Popeye cartoon is always the barrel-chested, overbearing, bullish, opinionated, ignorant, bellicose giant.
Right.
Because that's what women chose. Women chose that. Women chose strength and power and cunning.
Right.
And
Which
guile.
leads to big major problems.
Major problems. when you have two cousins who both rule countries, you're going to end up with World War I. It's going to happen.
Yeah.
So it's
not all based on species competition is where very, very probably I would say most maybe of the problems come from, right?
Yeah,
almost every problem.
We may have pulled the trigger, but
maybe not.
Women gave us the gun.
Man, you gotta prepare for a
I might edit that out. Probably not though, because I kind of stand behind what I just said.
Okay, that's cool,
true.
man. And I'm here on the show too. I'll take some bullets for it. Anyway, yeah. So no, we're gonna get a really awesome. But that'll actually stimulate the email flow, Alex. Thanks a lot.
I'm willing to explain myself, but I'm not going to dig my hole deeper until I
Right,
have to.
now, as a disclaimer, we're not saying that women are bad, right? Like,
No.
we don't want to, like, I don't want to...
saying our species is
Right,
bad.
right. We're not coming out... So I'm going to defend Alex here a little bit by saying that we're not ragging on women. We're not blaming World War I on women, right? Which was actually part of... There was a thing that one of my coworkers was just talking about where canned food, the reason we have canned food was blamed on women. Right? Like somebody now I should find this. I'm going to find the story at some point. I'm going to have her send it to me. But I think I'll cover it on the next episode.
The reason we have canned food is because of... No,
And so the justification for that is because once you had women no longer, I guess, staying home in the sort of like traditional gender roles of being in the kitchen, they had to preserve, it was like some preservative method for like when, for people who basically didn't know how to cook, which, i.e. men.
I guess I'm more likely to blame specifically white women for that.
Okay.
Because you think of the seasons coming and going. And like you think of any culture that has pickled things, they're traditionally Caucasian.
Right.
Like pickles or lutefisk or pickled herring. It's usually
traditionally Caucasian.
Again, I'm partially doing this show to be educated.
Okay.
So I'm by no means trying to incite people to be upset about my ignorance. I do like learning. So if you know better about the history of pickling and the history of canned goods, please let us know. Because we dig that stuff. We're into it. Right?
Yeah, we're into knowing about stuff.
Mm-hmm. It all makes this large, beautiful mosaic about the history of this world when you know a little bit about everything.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Yep. I know what causes an earthquake. I don't know too much about it, but I know a little bit. And that's part of my mosaic about what makes up this world, sort of. My pale mosaic.
Your pale mosaic. See, that would have been a cool podcast name. God damn it.
The Pale Mosaic.
Son of a bitch.
Yeah.
We just missed all 20 listeners would have been a good one.
It could have been called Master of None.
Right. Master of None. Gosh.
Jack of all trades.
Stuck with C and N.
C and N because the logo looks kind of cool. For those of you who are listening post-lawsuit, our logo used to look just like the CNN logo, but they came after us.
Right, post-lawsuit. So in advance, we're telling you in advance before we get sued.
Yeah, it's coming. It's coming.
Okay, so should we throw a little information in our non-informational podcast so far?
Love it. Hit us with some info.
Because let's see, I'm trying to think. Well, I'm trying to listen back to what we've actually already covered this episode, and I feel like somebody's going to get in about 20 minutes. We didn't make a very good first impression, I guess is what I'm getting at.
I was
for the
thinking
number
about
one
that,
episode.
and I think we did make a great first impression because this is us, It's
right.
like we came out ball swinging. Like this is what we do. This is what we actually we excel at this. A lot of we've read a lot of Wikipedia pages. We've read a lot of first paragraphs of Wikipedia pages. You ever go to a Wikipedia page and you're just like, I guess I don't care about the first moon landing that much. You just read the first little bit and you're like, now I'm an expert.
Right, but like I guess what I was trying to caution the listeners about is that there has to be a reason that something separates the two of us from any jerk offs that can operate a microphone and and throw shit on the internet.
You'll have to sell me on that one too.
Because maybe I guess part of it is we're making a statement about that. And part of my segment on the show today was going to be basically how easy it is to report information.
All right, before we hop into that, we're going to take a quick break. And we come back, we're going to have Peter's Where Are They Now segment. So stay tuned.
This tube is the gospel, the ultimate revelation. This tube can make or break presidents, popes, prime ministers. This tube is the most awesome goddamn force in the whole godless world. And woe is us if it ever falls into the hands of the wrong people. And when the 12th largest company in the world controls the most awesome goddamn propaganda force in the whole godless world, who knows what shit will be peddled for truth on this network.
All right, welcome back to C and N. My name is Peter, and I'm going to be running the I guess what I'm calling the Where Are They Now category, specializing in a lot of contemporary issues, things that we as humans care about. and
The everyday.
the everyday.
The day-to-day, the real
No,
stuff.
no, yeah. Well, your stuff is real stuff.
Well,
too.
I can talk about the universe out there. When it comes down to it, you still got to pay your taxes. Still got to wake up and go to work in the morning.
Right.
That's where
So
you
this
come in.
is kind of the less graduated version of the of the universal outlook.
You're living in a more realistic reality.
Yeah. So that's how the show balances out. And the reason I picked up this section, actually decided to do it this way, is the idea of specialization. You could probably argue that there is no truth aside from what you see with your own eyes, right? Because if somebody tells you something, they saw it with their eyes, they're going to have a different point of view. And, and everything is going to be framed a certain way. And I'm actually going to talk about media framing specifically next week.
Excellent.
Which we're going to prepare for, and I'll explain that a little bit more. But yeah, so there's a lot of media sources, and the legitimacy can be questioned a lot. Especially, I run into this problem partially because I'm kind of just getting into the whole. I'm going to school for communications, and I'm around a lot of journalism majors, and they, and it just feels like everybody's more informed than I am. I got that feeling. People are talking about stuff. I don't have a smartphone.
I don't either. That's one thing we have in common. Is we're both
the two of us
smartphone-less.
are smartphone-less.
But he has a killer laptop, and I have an iPad. So
Right. And
we're not Amish or anything.
No. We don't. We're not Amish. And so specifically, we're going to get into to really hashing down the everyday and seeing if we can make sense of it for people in as unbiased of a way as we. Now we're still going to have our own media framing, right? It's just unavoidable. The process of of creating an argument by obfuscation, right? Like
Sure.
We're still going to omit issues or things that you might not find super important. Details is a big thing, and so that's what this section is going to really cover. But it's I think it might be a little bit TED Talk-ish too, is what I'm saying.
TED Talks are huge.
If it's kind of like, because like it's informative in the in the everyday sense. If we run into something where it's like, oh, here's a new, like we might have something on Google Glass. Alex has discussed virtual reality systems in the past. Mm-hmm. So it's not necessarily going to be like always like tanks in Ukraine, right? It's,
sure.
We're really going to try and open it up. We're going to get a lot of interest. We encourage your emails, and we're going to try and cover a lot of topics. And so we'll find a section for you.
And once again, if you know of news stories that have fallen through the cracks, I mean, this is what's going on in Venezuela right now. That's been overshadowed by Ukraine for sure. Send it in. We want to hear about everything you've got for us.
And so we're getting into a cycle of 24 hours of news. We talk about this a lot. It's stretching. You've all turned on the TV, right? You got MSNBC, right, or NPR, or these guys that keep talking about. They just bring up a story every 3 hours, and it's the same thing. They'll tack a sentence on the end of it or something to fill, basically, because there isn't more news. We're just trying to fill more space with stuff, right? Like more stuff isn't. It's like
it's the same. I mean, like every major news story in the last 10 years could be called "This Just In" like a Wolf Blitzer voice. This just in.
Yeah,
we know nothing new at all. And back to you, Sarah. Seriously, Wolf Blitzer in a situation room, and it's gigantic TVs. This just in, and they have those large touchscreen TVs now because that's what's necessary to keep people entertained, because what you're saying is completely nothing. And we think this area here, making a big red circle, this area here is where it went down. It's like fun.
And even going down to things like CNN graphics, right? There's no difference between like a Fox News introduction than like a football game, ESPN, right? It's like you could watch the two side by side. And, you got four guys in suits in a room talking about the next sports stars, and you've got three people in, suits in the other room talking about Ukraine, right? And it's the same.
It's all the same
you
production
got the
value.
Same production value. I mean, it's like
they're both so untied to you, man.
So we're going the other direction. This may turn out to be boring for some people. If that's the case, I guess this isn't for you.
In all honesty, if it's not boring to some, then it won't be deeply fascinating to others. I hope it's boring to some people.
Right. Exactly.
The stuff I say should be boring to some.
I think that's kind of the idea is we're trying to get past the sensationalism of modern news, right? By doing our homework. And so that's the Where Are We Now category in a nutshell. It's going to be covering a lot of, exactly what it says. It's like, what are humans doing? Might be a little bit of a future projection. I'm not going to do a lot of that because I think Alex is a lot better at taking past behavior and extrapolating it into the future. So I'll let him handle that.
I'll bring the chimps up often.
Right, yeah, I'll let him handle that. But I think we do encourage you, as always, to do your own research. Do corrections if you feel it's necessary. We take all criticism. We're big on it, and part of the reason is this is a learning experience for us too. So,
as I said before, Peter, I'm super excited about that. We're going to take a short break, and we'll be back with you in just a moment. Thanks so much.
But the voice said to me, "Don't worry about the truth. I will put the words in your mouth." And I said, "What is this, the burning bush? For God's sake, I'm not Moses." And the voice said to me, "And I'm not God. What has that got to do with it?" And the voice said to me, "We're not talking about eternal truth or absolute truth or ultimate truth. We're talking about impermanent, transient human truth. I don't expect you people to be capable of truth, but God damn it, at least you're capable of self-preservation." And I said, "Why me?" And the voice said, "Because you're on television, dummy."
Welcome, everybody, back to CNN. I am Alex Magruder, sitting here with Peter, and we're going to be covering my macro section right now. I'm going to focus on kind of larger issues, humans, who we are, where we came from, and what our role is, if any, in the universe. And just to start with the thing that excites me the most, the piece that makes me the most excited is what we are physically made of on the atomic level. Now, this might seem boring to some people. It certainly isn't boring to me, but the most abundant chemicals, the most abundant elements in the universe are hydrogen, helium, oxygen, carbon, neon, all that good stuff, right? And the most abundant elements in us are oxygen, carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen. All the things that are the most abundant in the universe are the things that are most abundant in us. And so you think about what you are. I mean, you're not really Sarah Johnson. You're simply a bunch of atoms that have formed together to temporarily form Sarah Johnson. I mean, Sarah Johnson is only temporarily this physical being, Sarah Johnson. And I'm not talking about on the grand scale of her entire life, the 80 years that she is Sarah Johnson. I'm talking about on a very small scale of 5 years. I mean, every cell in your body completely replaces itself every 5 to 8 years. Even brain cells, eye cells, everything that you call yourself you. When Sarah looks in the mirror and sees herself, everything that she's seeing will be completely different on a cellular level than it was 5 years ago. So what are you? Are we our memories? Are we our consciousness? I don't know. I can't answer those questions. But what I can say for sure is that we are not these vessels that we find ourselves in, these things that we identify ourselves with. You think about when you were forming, right? One thing we all have in common is we all formed inside of our mothers. No matter who you are, you were formed inside of your mom. And what you're made out of, sure, you are one cell from your dad and you're a cell from your mom, and those things split, but you're also everything that your mother ate, all the things that came in and went out and came in and went out. The planet is one of your parents in the sense of cell division, in the sense of making you who you are. And that thing that formed inside of your mother, that is not you right now. You're not carrying any of those bones around. You're not carrying any of those brain cells around. But there is this long, never-ending narrative that we tell ourselves, these stories that we tell ourselves. When I was this age, my brother got a bike and I was jealous. When I was this age, my dad yelled at me and I was scared. When I was this age, I met a girl. And what is that person but the story I'm telling, this fictional person that I have created? Even our stories are false. The stories we tell ourselves are not true. You can take an eyewitness account, and Peter can attest to this, take an eyewitness account of a news story and run it through several different sources, ask several different people, and that car will change colors as many times as there are eyewitnesses, because our memories are not computer. Our memories are not binary. It isn't a perfect representation of what actually happened. It's what happened through the filter of my life. So, that being said, and just to hop right into the deep end and just put all my cards on the table, we are the most conscious beings in this universe. And just as the sun is a fusion part of the universe, and a comet is a shooting fast, icy part of the universe, we are a sensory input part of the universe. Us and any sentient creature on this planet, you think of ourselves as these apertures for the universe to look into itself. Our 5 basic senses are the way for the universe to see itself, to perceive itself, because those senses are the universe. And when I say universe, I don't mean something mystical. I don't mean something magical. I'm talking about the actual universe, that thing that you can observe through a telescope, that thing that you can look down into the micro world and see. That is all universe, and you and I are part of that. And I think that's been forgotten in a simple lie we tell ourselves, that on a certain day, Sarah Johnson, October 13th, 1972, she was born into this world. And that is fundamentally incorrect. She was born out of this world. The same way that an apple tree apples, the earth tends to people. She isn't some stranger in this land that came into it from afar with her baggage in hand and her $14 bills and
Superman.
Like Superman. Yeah, exactly. Just like Superman. She came out of this universe. And we are lucky to live in a universe that can create conscious beings. And that's what gets me going. That's what turns me on and makes me want to share with people and scream at people that this is us. The things that the universe are made of, we are made of. The universe is hydrogen, we are hydrogen. The universe is oxygen, we are oxygen. These things are not rare. They're all around us. They're in all life. We are the universe, and the universe is us.
Yeah, thanks so much, Alex. We're gonna, myself included, I'm assuming, and the listeners are going to be, actually pretty enthused to hear, how your part of the show plays out in the future. Because you're.
Thank you.
And we're going to be back in a short break or after a short break, but I do want to tell listeners that I am also hearing a lot of this stuff for the first time. Sometimes. So thanks.
Sometimes. If you're an average Bear fan, you've heard a lot of
right,
these
a little bit.
before,
but I think you're going to get into some ground that's going to break ground. You're going to break some ground.
Ground will be broken.
Ground will be broken. Maybe on both accounts, And so, yeah, we'll be right back after this.
The amazing thing is that every atom in your body came from a star that exploded. And the atoms in your left hand probably came from a different star than your right hand. It really is the most poetic thing I know about physics. You are all stardust. You couldn't be here if stars hadn't exploded, because the elements, the carbon, nitrogen, oxygen, iron, all the things that matter for evolution weren't created at the beginning of time. They're created in the nuclear furnaces of stars, and the only way they can get into your body is if the stars were kind enough to explode.
The knowledge that the atoms that comprise life on Earth, the atoms that make up the human body, are traceable to the crucibles that cooked light elements into heavy elements in their core under extreme temperatures and pressures. These stars, the high-mass ones among them, went unstable in their later years. They collapsed and then exploded, scattering their enriched guts across the galaxy. Guts made of carbon, nitrogen, oxygen.
All right, welcome back to CNN. Thanks for staying with us. This is a mile for you, a mile marker, because you have reached the end of the first episode of CNN. We want to thank you for listening and sticking with us.
Unless you skip to it.
Unless you skip to the end, then you don't deserve this mile marker. But way to go. We learned a lot today about the universe, hopefully. And once again, email us anything you want. Send us a picture of your dog if you'd like. Let us know that you're out there. Email us at cndnpodcast@gmail.com. To spell it out for you, that's CANDN podcast@gmail.com.
Sure. For sure, Alex.
That's what we got for you there. Once again, thanks to Peter for being a great co-host.
Right, yeah. We muscled our way through this one.
We made it through. And, they're only going to get better.
They're only going to get better.
Or
yeah,
we'll
we encourage you to
completely.
stay with us, for sure. And we're not just two random we are two random-ass guys that have the ability to post shit on the internet, But, we take ourselves a little seriously. So we would like you to, too.
It comes down to critical thinking.
Right.
I mean, I can see, and also Peter can see, stories from different viewpoints. We can critically think about the world around us and evaluate it. We're not terribly passionate people, I guess.
Right, but
And
we
that
have
has-
fun with it. So, please don't think that we're just going to rag on your viewpoints. Because
No.
we're not just two co-hosts sitting in a chair, waiting for...
Yeah, we can see it from your point of view too. No
Yeah.
matter
So
how,
we're not, we don't dive super into the direct, religious views or political views or anything like that, but we do try and think about it critically. So yeah, any questions you have, please send them in.
Once again, we are CNN. Thank you so much for listening, and have a wonderful week or two. Bye-bye now.